They used your kindness as currency, and the worst part, you kept giving even when it cost you your peace. You thought being the nice person would earn you love, loyalty, and respect, but all it really earned you was burnout, betrayal, and being overlooked. You've been taught your whole life to put others first, but what has that really gotten you? Here's the truth. Being the nice person is not the same as being a good person. The world doesn't respect nice. The world respects real. And today it's time to stop sacrificing yourself for people who wouldn't even notice if you disappeared. You have one life, one chance, and you're wasting it being everything for everyone except the one person who truly matters. You. The moment you label yourself as the nice one, you step into a role that sounds noble but often leads to pain. Being nice isn't the problem. Being overly nice at the cost of your well-being is. You start to operate under a silent rule book. Always say yes, avoid conflict, never let anyone down. You carry the weight of everyone's expectations, thinking that if you just give more, love harder, stay quieter, they'll finally value you. But they don't. Instead, they start expecting that level of sacrifice. It becomes your identity. Your kindness gets mistaken for weakness, and people begin to test just how much they can take from you. Not out of malice always, but because you've taught them that your boundaries are negotiable, that your time is flexible, that your silence is consent. You become the person they run to when they need something, but ignore when you need support. Your phone only rings when there's a favor to ask. You become the emotional sponge for their problems, but have no one to turn to with your own. And still, you try harder. You convince yourself that this is love, this is friendship, this is loyalty, that being indispensable will finally earn you a secure place in their lives. But all it really earns you is exhaustion, quiet resentment, an ache in your soul that you try to suppress with smiles and overcommitment. The truth is, you've mistaken people-pleasing for purpose. You're not helping because you're selfless. You're helping because you're afraid of being alone, afraid of not being needed, afraid that without this role of the nice one, you won't matter. But you do matter. You've just forgotten that your worth isn't tied to how useful you are to others. Somewhere along the line, you started believing that love has to be earned by overextending yourself. You started measuring your value by how little space you take up, how little trouble you cause, how easy you make life for everyone else. This behavior didn't come out of nowhere. Maybe it started in childhood where being good got you attention or kept you safe. Maybe society told you that selflessness was a virtue and selfishness a sin. Maybe you watched someone close to you always put others first and thought that was the standard. But it's time to question that model, because what worked to keep you accepted back then is now the very thing keeping you unfulfilled. Being the nice person might protect you from short-term conflict, but it exposes you to long-term pain. The pain of not being seen. The pain of feeling like no matter how much you give, it's never enough. The pain of being surrounded by people, yet constantly feeling empty. You wear the mask so well that not even those closest to you notice how much you're breaking inside. And that's the scariest part. You've become so good at hiding your needs that even you have forgotten how to voice them. You've been living under the illusion that if you're good enough, patient enough, giving enough, the world will eventually reward you. That someday all your sacrifices will be acknowledged, your loyalty will be repaid, and your kindness will be remembered. But that's not how the world works. The harsh truth is the world doesn't care how nice you are. It doesn't keep a scoreboard of your selflessness. It doesn't hand out awards for emotional labor done in silence. It rewards strength, boundaries, self-respect, and unapologetic authenticity. The more you sacrifice yourself for others without limits, the more invisible you become. Not appreciated, expected. The things you think make you lovable often make you forgettable to the very people you're trying to impress. There's no fairness in being the one who constantly shows up but rarely gets anything back. You keep giving second chances to people who don't deserve a first. You keep listening to problems from people who never ask how you're doing. You keep showing up for people who wouldn't even notice if you stopped. That's not loyalty. That's self-neglect. That's you confusing love with obligation. And it's not just draining your energy. It's eroding your sense of self. The world will keep taking from you as long as you keep offering yourself for free. It's not cruelty, it's conditioning. People treat you how you allow them to. If you consistently choose others over yourself, they'll never learn to value your time or your presence. You've become too easy to access, too quick to forgive, too afraid to draw a line in the sand. The truth is, you're waiting for someone else to validate your worth. You're waiting for that one person who'll say, you've done enough, you matter. But that voice has to come from you. No one's coming to save you from the role you keep playing. You have to step out of the shadows and into your own power. That means recognizing that you can't control how people treat you, but you can control what you tolerate. You can't force people to see your value, but you can stop offering discounts on your time, your energy, your love. It means understanding that respect is not something you earn through suffering. It's something you demand by how you carry yourself. You've convinced yourself that your silence keeps the peace, that being agreeable keeps you safe, that shrinking yourself helps you stay in people's lives, but you're not keeping peace, you're suppressing your own voice, and every time you do that, a piece of you disappears. This isn't what you were meant for. You weren't born to be someone's emotional convenience store, always open, always available, always giving. You were born to live, to thrive, to protect your soul. You've been living like your needs are negotiable, like your heart is disposable, like your presence is optional. And all of that ends the moment you decide that your well-being matters more than their opinion. There's a deep confusion that's been drilled into you, one that equates being kind with being endlessly available, agreeable, and accommodating. But kindness isn't about losing yourself. It's not about carrying everyone else's burdens while yours crush you quietly. True kindness is rooted in strength, not self-erasure. What you've been doing isn't strength, it's self-betrayal disguised as goodness. It's not generosity when it costs you your peace. It's not love when it erodes your self-respect. You've learned to wear a smile even when your boundaries are violated. You've learned to nod in agreement just to keep the peace. You've learned to minimize your needs so others can feel comfortable, accepted, and in control. And in the process, you've abandoned yourself time and time again. You think being nice protects you from conflict, rejection, and loneliness. But all it really does is invite people who only love the version of you that's easy to use. You give, they take. You listen, they vent. You forgive, they repeat. And when you finally snap, they call you dramatic. They question your sanity because they've never met the real you, only the version who stayed silent, agreeable, and always said yes. But you're not here to be everyone's emotional caretaker. You're not here to sacrifice your soul in the name of being liked. You're here to live with honesty and authenticity, even if that means fewer people stand beside you, and that takes courage. The real problem isn't that you care too much. It's that you've been afraid to care for yourself with the same intensity. You've put so much effort into making others happy that you forgot what your own joy looks like. You've been so available to everyone else that your own needs have been pushed to the background, neglected, dismissed, and eventually forgotten. And what's worse, you've been doing it for so long that it feels normal. You wake up tired, drained, and resentful, but you chalk it up to being a good person. But being a good person doesn't mean being a martyr. It doesn't mean being exhausted, anxious, or quietly heartbroken while everyone else leans on you. You've been conditioned to think that speaking up makes you difficult, that setting boundaries makes you selfish, that saying no means you're heartless. But the truth is, none of that is real. It's just the narrative that others created to keep you in a place where your needs don't interfere with their comfort. The moment you begin to say, I deserve to be heard, things will change. The moment you say, I matter too, and yes, it will make some people uncomfortable. Yes, you will lose a few connections, but those are the people who were never really connected to the real you, only to the version who made life easier for them. Choosing yourself doesn't make you unkind. It makes you honest. It makes you whole. And it finally allows you to be the kind that comes from truth, not fear. When you begin focusing on yourself, really focusing, not in a selfish way, but in a self-respecting way, everything changes. The fog starts to lift. You begin to see the truth that was hidden behind all the noise of people-pleasing. You start to notice how much time you've spent apologizing for simply existing, how often you've put others' comfort above your own truth. You realize how many moments you let slide, how many boundaries you overlooked just to maintain harmony that only benefited others. But the minute you redirect that energy inward, it's like reclaiming your power piece by piece. You no longer wait for someone else to validate your voice. You start listening to it yourself. You stop over-explaining your choices because you finally understand they don't need to approve for your life to move forward. You no longer lower your standards just to avoid being alone because you realize that solitude is better than being surrounded by people who only love you on their terms. When you focus on yourself, you start healing from the inside. You stop asking why they didn't appreciate you and start asking why you didn't appreciate yourself enough to walk away sooner. You realize you weren't abandoned. You abandoned yourself first by choosing their approval over your peace. You look in the mirror not to criticize what's lacking, but to reconnect with someone you lost in the process of trying to be good. And that reconnection is powerful because it doesn't just restore your energy, it sharpens your awareness. You begin to recognize manipulation where you once made excuses. You identify toxicity where you once gave endless chances. You no longer tolerate crumbs of love and call it loyalty. You want more, not from entitlement, but from finally understanding your value. You don't have to become cold or cruel to protect yourself. You just have to become clear. Clear about your limits, clear about your intentions, clear about who gets access to your inner world and who doesn't. You don't owe everyone a front row seat to your life just because they showed up once when it was convenient for them. When you focus on yourself, you stop chasing people who were never meant to stay. You stop begging for attention that's forced, for affection that's inconsistent, for connection that drains more than it gives. You stop trying to convince them of your worth because you finally convinced yourself. And that's when the shift happens, not just around you, but inside you. You move differently. You speak with more conviction. You take up space without apologizing for it. You choose your peace over their expectations. Your silence becomes intentional, not suppressed. Your presence becomes powerful, not desperate. You learn to walk away without guilt, to say no without fear, and to choose yourself without shame. It's not arrogance, it's clarity. It's not revenge, it's rebirth. And you begin to realize that the more you protect your energy, the more powerful your life becomes. Focusing on yourself means rewriting the story you've been telling yourself all along. It means breaking the habit of thinking you need to be liked to feel worthy, that you need to be accepted to feel whole. You start to detach from the version of you that was built for their comfort and instead build a version that honors your truth. You stop chasing closure from people who gave you confusion. You stop seeking apologies from those who don't even recognize the damage they caused. Instead, you begin to accept that peace sometimes comes without an apology, and growth sometimes requires letting go without a goodbye. You realize that not everyone who walked with you was meant to finish the journey with you. Some were lessons, some were warnings, some were just passing storms meant to redirect you toward your real self. You begin to reclaim your time, not just in the physical sense, but mentally and emotionally. You stop giving your thoughts to people who've long stopped thinking about you. You stop reliving conversations that ended months ago, hoping you said the right thing. You stop rewriting the past, trying to make sense of why it all fell apart. Because now You understand. It didn't fall apart, it fell into place. It cleared space for something stronger, wiser, and truer. And that something is you, the healed version, the grounded version, the version who doesn't need to be everything for everyone just to feel like something. As you grow, the need to prove yourself fades. You no longer need to show up in spaces that don't recognize your light. You stop overcompensating, over-explaining, over-giving because you realize your energy is sacred. You've given it away too freely in the past, thinking it was love when it was actually a cry to be seen. But now you see yourself, and that changes everything. You become more intentional with your time, your circle, your choices. You learn that not everything requires your reaction, not everyone deserves your energy, and not every battle needs to be fought. You stop trying to control how people see you and start focusing on how you see yourself. This shift doesn't happen overnight. It's a daily decision to choose yourself even when it feels unfamiliar. It's choosing to walk away from patterns that feel safe but keep you small. It's recognizing that healing isn't just about removing toxic people. It's about removing the version of you that tolerated them. And that takes work, but it's the kind of work that pays off in ways you never imagined. Because once you break free from the need to be the nice one, the agreeable one, the always available one, you become powerful, not in a loud, arrogant way, but in a quiet, unshakable way, a way that says, I know who I am, and I no longer need your validation to keep being me. That's the strength that can't be manipulated, the confidence that can't be faked, and the freedom that can't be taken away. When you finally stop being the nice person for everyone else, you begin to discover the real meaning of peace, not the fake kind that's built on pretending everything's okay, but the deep, grounded kind that comes from choosing yourself every single time. You no longer walk into rooms wondering if you're enough. You walk in knowing that you don't need to perform for approval. You stop fearing rejection because you're no longer trying to fit into spaces that don't reflect your worth. You understand that being liked is nice, but being respected is essential. And respect doesn't come from being a doormat. It comes from having the courage to say no, to speak your truth, to walk away from what doesn't feel right. That's what focusing on yourself gives you, the ability to see clearly what serves your growth and what only drains it. And you begin to shift your attention inward. You start feeding your own mind instead of feeding everyone else's expectations. You invest in your goals instead of constantly sacrificing your dreams for the convenience of others. You stop dimming your light to make others comfortable in their shadows. And as your inner world strengthens, the noise of the outer world starts to lose its power over you. You realize that your silence isn't weakness, it's wisdom, that your boundaries aren't walls, they're doors to a better version of your life. And most importantly, you stop explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You understand that people can only meet you as deeply as they've met themselves. So you stop taking their inability to value you as a reflection of your own worth. Focusing on yourself doesn't mean shutting the world out. It means choosing yourself first so you can engage with the world from a place of wholeness, not desperation. You stop needing people to complete you because you've taken the time to become complete within yourself. That confidence becomes magnetic. People notice it, even the ones who once took you for granted. They sense the shift. They can't manipulate you the way they used to. They can't guilt you into staying or flatter you into silence. You've become grounded, and grounded people are hard to move. Your presence becomes your power, and your absence becomes a lesson to those who once underestimated you. You've spent too long trying to fix things you didn't break, trying to be enough for people who were never ready to receive you. Now your focus has changed. You're building yourself. You're healing your patterns. You're protecting your peace like it's your most valuable asset. Because it is. Every time you say no to something that drains you, you say yes to the life that's waiting to empower you. That's the reward of no longer being the nice person for the sake of acceptance. You start living on your terms, not theirs. And for the first time, your life feels like yours again. Stepping away from the role of the nice person isn't just about changing how others see you. It's about radically transforming how you see yourself. For years, you might have believed your value was tied to how much you gave, how often you said yes, or how little you caused trouble. But true self-worth isn't measured by how much you bend or how quietly you suffer. It's measured by how fiercely you protect your energy, how unapologetically you honor your needs, and how consistently you stand up for your truth. When you decide to stop being the nice person, you're not becoming mean or selfish. You're becoming whole. You're reclaiming the parts of yourself that were lost to approval-seeking, people-pleasing, and fear of rejection. This transformation calls for bravery because it means confronting uncomfortable truths. You might realize that some relationships you valued were one-sided, that your kindness was taken for granted, or that your silence was a breeding ground for resentment. You might feel guilt for finally putting yourself first, or fear that you're losing the people you love. But what you need to understand is that guilt and fear are not the same as love or loyalty. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself and for others is to stop giving away your peace in the name of being nice. When you stop catering to others' expectations and start living according to your own values, you create space for genuine connections, relationships built on mutual respect, honesty, and care. As you embrace this new way of living, you also develop a sharper sense of discernment. You learn to recognize who deserves your time and who doesn't. You stop wasting your energy on people who drain you and instead invest it in people who uplift you. This doesn't mean you cut everyone off or become closed off emotionally. It means you become selective. You create boundaries that protect your emotional health. You start saying no without guilt and yes without hesitation. When it aligns with your well-being, your yes becomes a powerful tool, not a default response to avoid conflict or rejection. Changing the narrative about what it means to be nice also frees you from the trap of perfectionism. You no longer feel the pressure to meet impossible standards just to be accepted or loved. You accept that you're human with flaws and limits, and that's enough. You stop apologizing for your emotions, your mistakes, and your needs. This self-acceptance creates a foundation for resilience. When you're grounded in your worth, you can face challenges without crumbling, setbacks without despair, and criticism without losing yourself. You become your own advocate and your own safest place. Most importantly, by focusing on yourself and stopping the endless cycle of people-pleasing, you open the door to freedom. The freedom to live authentically and unapologetically. You reclaim your voice, your power, and your peace. And in that space, you discover something extraordinary. When you stop being nice to everyone else, you finally become truly kind to yourself. When you embrace the decision to stop being the nice person who sacrifices their own needs for others, you open the door to a life that is truly yours. This shift isn't just about changing behavior, it's about awakening to your own power. You begin to see that your worth is not dependent on how much you do for others, but on how fully you show up for yourself. This realization changes everything because suddenly your happiness is no longer fragile, dependent on external validation or approval. Instead, it becomes an internal compass guiding your every step. You stop seeking permission to be yourself and start living in alignment with your own values and desires. This journey requires patience because it's not easy to undo a lifetime of conditioning. You've been told that being nice means always accommodating, always forgiving, always sacrificing. But the truth is, this kind of niceness often hides resentment, exhaustion, and even self-hatred. When you choose to focus on yourself, you acknowledge that your needs matter just as much as anyone else's. You give yourself permission to rest, to say no, to prioritize your own growth and well-being. And this permission feels revolutionary because it breaks the cycle of people-pleasing that has kept you stuck for so long. As you grow more comfortable with this new way of living, you notice your relationships begin to transform. Some will grow deeper and stronger because they're based on mutual respect and authenticity rather than convenience or obligation. Others will fade away, and that's okay. Those relationships were never meant to last because they thrived on imbalance. Letting go of these connections frees up space for healthier, more nourishing ones to enter your life. You start to surround yourself with people who celebrate your boundaries, honor your truth, and encourage your growth rather than demand your compliance. Focusing on yourself also sharpens your self-awareness. You become more attuned to how certain people, situations, or habits affect your energy. You learn to recognize early warning signs of toxicity or manipulation and act before it drains you. You develop emotional resilience because your foundation is no longer built on pleasing others, but on honoring your own spirit. This doesn't mean you become indifferent or cold. It means you become wise and discerning. You treat yourself with kindness and respect, and you expect the same from those around you. The choice to stop being the nice person at the expense of yourself is an act of radical self-love. It's a commitment to live authentically, to speak your truth, and to walk your path without apology. It's about breaking free from the chains of approval and stepping into the freedom of self-respect. This transformation isn't just about surviving. It's about thriving. It's about building a life where you are the priority. Your happiness is non-negotiable and your peace is protected fiercely. In this new reality, you realize that focusing on yourself is not selfish, it's necessary. It's the foundation for a life filled with genuine joy, meaningful connections, and unwavering confidence. Choosing to focus on yourself and stop being the nice person everyone expects is more than just setting boundaries. It's about embracing your own authenticity with courage and conviction. When you stop suppressing your true feelings to avoid conflict or discomfort, you allow your real self to emerge. This is the version of you that doesn't bend or break to fit someone else's expectations, but stands firm in your values and beliefs. It's not about becoming harsh or unkind. It's about being honest and real, even when it's uncomfortable. This honesty creates a new kind of freedom, one that liberates you from the exhausting cycle of people-pleasing and the constant fear of disappointing others. As you start living authentically, you'll notice a powerful shift in how others respond to you. Some people might resist this change because they were used to the old version of you, the one who always said yes, who never spoke up, who put their needs last. But this resistance isn't a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of their own discomfort with change. You have to be willing to accept that not everyone will like the new you, and that's perfectly okay. Real strength lies in your ability to remain true to yourself, even when it means losing approval or facing criticism. This is where your self-respect grows, fueled not by external validation, but by an inner knowing that you are enough just as you are. Authenticity also means embracing your imperfections without shame. The nice person often hides behind a mask of perfectionism, trying to appear flawless to gain acceptance. But true growth comes when you allow yourself to be seen in your vulnerability, to admit mistakes, and to show your humanity. When you do this, you inspire others to do the same. You create deeper, more meaningful connections that are rooted in honesty rather than superficial politeness. You stop pretending to be someone you're not, and start attracting people who appreciate you for your real self. Living authentically also means giving yourself permission to pursue what truly matters to you. Instead of living according to a script written by others, you start writing your own story. You prioritize your passions, your goals, and your happiness. You learn to say no to things that don't serve your growth, and yes to opportunities that align with your values. This shift brings a sense of purpose and fulfillment that people-pleasing can never provide. When you focus on yourself in this way, you step into a life that feels rich, vibrant, and deeply satisfying. This transformation requires practice and patience. You might stumble, feel guilty, or second guess yourself along the way. But each time you choose authenticity over approval, you build resilience. You strengthen your sense of self and create a foundation that can withstand external pressures. You become someone who no longer fears rejection because you've learned that your worth isn't tied to others' opinions. Instead, it's grounded in the unshakable truth of who you are. This is the power that comes from focusing on yourself and living authentically. Freedom, confidence, and a life that truly reflects your soul.